For the opening sequence of Contractor's routine, there was a huge combination of software being used. You never really used just one piece of software for a special effects sequence. Obviously, the main software used here is the animation software, which is Maya 2008. So we used Maya, and I think one of the biggest challenges with building the sequence was actually Earth. For Earth, we had to build two spheres, so one sphere that was Earth, and it had to have several images mapped onto it called textures. And so that base sphere had the daytime side of Earth, which was very high resolution NASA photographs of Earth, which are public domain, which makes things nice and free. And then for the nighttime side of Earth was also NASA imagery of the nighttime side of Earth with all the lights in Tokyo and across Russia and everything in China, so it looks pretty sweet. But then there's the atmospheric effect, and that's probably the most difficult part out of everything. The atmospheric effect is something that looks at the outer sphere, because believe it or not, it's actually a solid shell that we put on there, looks at that and says, hey, what angle is this pixel pointing at the camera from? And as it goes out to the edges, it gets more and more less and less transparent and more transparent towards the center, which makes it look like an actual atmosphere of gas. And then there was a third sphere inside of there that had the clouds texture mapped on it that was slowly moving inside of there. So that was probably the most difficult. The Moon and Mars, those are just solid spheres. Mars also had a little bit of an atmosphere, but since Earth was already made, all I had to do was just adapt it for Mars. But those were the two biggest challenges. But then you had the fire trails coming off, which were particle effects, and those were actual physics simulations. So you have to know physics when you're doing animations like this. And fire's coming off, and then it turns into smoke, and so the smoke itself was another physics simulation. And the asteroid itself breaking apart, we actually had to build an asteroid and crack it into several pieces and use physics to break that apart. But then the whole thing is brought together in Adobe After Effects. And a lot of the textures were made in Photoshop. And what After Effects lets us do is it lets us, like on the building sequence when the asteroids are going behind the buildings and the camera's panning along, it lets us actually track the motion of the camera and cut out the buildings from the animation sequence so it actually looks like the asteroids are coming in, or meteors by the time they hit the atmosphere, sorry. Meteors are actually trailing behind the buildings. So a big combination between Adobe After Effects, Maya, Adobe Photoshop. There's even a little bit of Lightwave 3D in there for, every 3D package has things that it specializes in, so Lightwave was used as well.